All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What up, everybody? Thank you. Oh, you know it. You got your foam fingers out. It's the Final Four on Mark Thompson's the little show that they doubted. They said you'll never get it going. You take your KGO people over to YouTube. It's going to be, oh, come on, you're going to give up after a few months. No, we didn't. We are here. And we are excited about Mark's Madness. The Final Four starts today. If you don't know what it is, we'll get you filled in. We are late today, and I blame the producer.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
I really do blame Albert for all of our delays.
Albert, thank you.
And Kim is here as well.
Kim, how are you?
And I don't know, Kim could step it up too. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, Kim could.
I blame you.
I don't know, Kim. I think if I were you.
Running behind because of all you were sticking tiles on the back of your window there? Is that what happened?
Let me tell you what we've done. I'm experimenting. We're beta testing a black background. It's not quite perfect. I know that, but I'm beta testing it today, and we'll beta test the next few days in this cheapo version that I've done, and then we'll make a final decision on it. Yeah, we're gonna make a final decision on it in probably next week. So I'd like a darker background. I don't like the white, and that's one of the things that we're working on. So, so that
you do stand out more against the dark background, I will say.
Thank you very much. Well, and I kind of like that.
Do you know who I am? Yeah. I'm kind of a big deal.
So anything where I stand out, I kind of enjoy. So we have a big show today. I mean, I'm not just saying that. We have a really big show. David Cay Johnston, Andrew Fraknoi, the professor of astronomy, is going to come through. Jefferson Graham on tech. But we also have a very big show when it comes to Mark's Madness. We have pitted different drops on our show. They started on the radio, and they've come over with us to YouTube. We pitted those drops against each other. And we call it Mark's Madness. We've been doing it for years. The commissioner of Mark's Madness is Albert. And Commish, this is the beginning of the Final Four today, right?
Yeah, beginning of the Final Four. And funny, you're blaming me for the delays today. And that drop that is disparaging towards me is actually in the Final Four.
That's outrageous because that drop, the producer has no idea what he's doing, usually is eliminated in the first two rounds, I've found, in past Mark's Madness, right?
Yeah, so people are really, like I said it a couple days ago, people are really out to get me now, Mark. So. I'm keeping
Albert, thank you.
I have a bulletin board. I have the names, so I will remember that for next year.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. I got number one for the day. Woo-hoo! I will take it. Hoping to keep Avila down. Chit all the way, says Lulu Lancaster.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
No.
Big shout out, Lulu.
Big shout out.
Lulu is number one on the leaderboard.
Look at her. Way to go.
She has chit to rock the show.
All right.
30 to 35% idiots is Sally Costa. And here's the good news for Sally. If 30 to 35% idiots, which we'll play for you next hour, it'll be up in the Final Four. If it prevails, I think Sally is pretty much without competition, except Cheryl maybe, who picked, and SR picked 30 to 35% idiots to win it all too. But I think on point, Sally would probably win. Anyway, Chit is a fan favorite to win. And here's the other thing I would just say, just in terms of handicapping it. When you have this many people who are involved in Mark's Madness, who have brackets, and they all have chit, you know that when chit comes up, they're going to vote chit. So you're having to, in a way, you're having to win even bigger because all of those people are voting chit because they want to win. Right. And so you get it. It's a little weird.
That might be a strategy next year. Submit your brackets at the last possible moment, see what people think are going to win it all, and then make sure you just vote for that one.
Yeah, if they'll show, I don't know if they'll show you what people are picking. Maybe they will before you submit your bracket. But anyway.
Maybe it does. I don't think it does. After I solidify it, then it shows everyone's picks. So I guess it's still a pure guessing game.
Yeah, I don't think they'll show you any information until you actually have your bracket in. Albert, what happened yesterday, though? Just how do we get to the Final Four?
So we had the Final Four, Why Are You Yelling versus Seriously WTF. Seriously WTF was in the Final Four last year, but I mean, Why Are You Yelling is the only top 4 seed remaining, and it wasn't
yelling?
close.
Yeah.
And then
Why
the
Are You Yelling is the OG drop of this show. So it's
former champion as well.
Yeah, former champ. But Good Day, Sir got bounced, right?
Good Day, Sir. Yep. Kim's drop. That was a couple days ago.
I mean, Good Day, Sir. I mentioned it because Good Day, Sir won, I think, last year.
So and it was the number 1 overall seed, obviously. So no repeat champions this year. For the maybe Why Are You Yelling? But I have a feeling it's not going to be like that.
Well, let's get it.
I can't believe it! Mark's Madness.
Yeah, you're going to vote for it right now. The Final Four. You'll vote either. Or you'll vote for...
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
It's extraordinary. You'll vote either for Chit Chit Chit, or you'll vote for Producer No Idea.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
You can vote live now in the chat, and you can vote until midnight tonight in the community section of our YouTube channel. Good luck, everybody. I'm very excited about the Final Four. It's a little bit different. There's new blood into the Final Four, so that's exciting as well. So good luck, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will tell you that there is a lot of news. There is there's some major guests coming through. Pulitzer Prize winner David Cay Johnston joins in the second hour. There's a lot of Trump news. In fact, I'm kind of bumping the Trump news to David's segment. But the big news, as you know, is that Donald Trump has come up with his bond. It is unclear right now how that bond is collateralized, how the bond company, insurance company, is insuring their insurance, Usually it's collateralized in some way.
Didn't Trump say he was going to pay cash for that?
Yeah, well, he sometimes, occasionally, he says things that he... is just making up in the moment, which is
really
okay.
What?
I'm just saying he doesn't. I'm sure he means well, but actually, I'm not really sure that he means well. But I am.
Don't talk to me that way.
I'm just saying that it's possible that he had no idea where the money was coming from. But he does have connections to fairly big pools of money. Not all of them are as pure as one might want. Meaning, you always wonder if it's a pay-to-play type situation with Donald Trump. But in any case, with all of that said, he did come up with a bond. As you know, the bond was busted down. That I leave to legal minds. We'll talk to David Katz on Thursday. We'll talk to David Cay Johnston today. But that was a substantial bust down. You go from $450 million that you need to post in the bond to $175 million. I mean, see, that's a successful appeal. Yeah. So anyway, just because I'm talking about Donald Trump, and I just want to quickly mention the stock, the essential aspects of Trump stock, I suppose they are twofold. One is if you are buying the stock, you're going to likely lose money on the stock if you're buying in now. We have a couple of people in our chat who are big Trumpies. They bought the stock. And here's the virtue of buying the stock. If you're a Trumpy, you own a piece of Trump. You want a piece of your Lord. So you buy all of the merch in the Lord store that you can get, to proclaim, in a sense, your devotion to this guy. That is really a big part of the Trump cult. And there's a religiosity almost to the devoted nature of his followers. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's clearly the case. They're talking about him, not all of them, but many of them are talking about him in godlike ways. And so part of the political deification of him includes the financial deification of him. And that means I'm buying a piece of this stock. I'm buying a piece of it's called DJT because I want to support this guy who I believe so fervently in. Okay. Well, so you'll have that no matter what. There's no one's going to take that away from you. You don't care how the stock is doing. I just want to support my Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. So if that's your game, you're in good shape. If you want more money for cashing in and selling the stock than you paid for the stock, that's not going to be so easy. The stock has precipitously dropped. Of course, it was a down day in the market. But beyond that, the financials have come out, and the new financial filing released yesterday had total revenue for the company at $4.1 million. And if you extrapolate that out, the stock is trading at like 2,000 times the company's annual revenue. That is very high. Apple trades at 7 times, just to give you a sense of the total revenue. Okay, and it lost $58 million last year, as you know. So, look, you can talk about these plans that Donald Trump is promising for the stock and for the company. You can talk about sort of the great potential that this has, but the reality is this is a smash and grab almost. It's a pump and dump. Call it what you want, but that's what's really happening. And unless you were part of the SPAC, unless you were part of the primordial ooze that was the beginnings of this stock, if you bought right at the open, like if you bought right when the market opened and then you dumped it when it hit 70, then you made money. After that, I think you're going to be really in trouble. But if you're, again, just a cultist, then you're going to be fine.
It's higher than it was yesterday. It's at 52.20, and yesterday it's down into the 40s.
So if you bought yesterday and you're flipping today, maybe you make money.
Yeah.
But now you're playing the flip. Good luck with that. I guess what I'm saying is the rush that ran the stock up at the beginning, that was all in the 60s. Okay, so you're down a lot from that. But yeah, you can average, when a stock drops, you can average in and, you take down the number that you got in for. So look, the devoted will continue to buy, and maybe they'll make some money if they flip it at the right time, if they time that stock. But the financials certainly aren't there to back anything up when it comes to that stock. We'll talk to David Cay Johnston second hour about that and more. The craziness associated with naming an airport after Donald Trump. That is actually being launched in Congress. We'll talk to David Cay Johnston about that. It's insanity. It's insanity. This. Let me get to this. I think this is
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is a troubling story out of Florida. I just wanted to... I didn't say, this is the problem. Randy says, I didn't quite catch what Mark said about Apple. Did he say that Apple lost money in 2023? No, I did not. That had nothing to do with what I was talking about. So no, I was talking about the fact that Apple trades at 7 times earnings.
Yeah.
Okay, 7 times revenue. Okay. That's all I said about Apple. Okay, so everything else that you said is terrific, but it doesn't apply to anything that I said. I mean, I'm just saying it's a...
Good day, sir!
All right, okay. There's a lot of trying to catch me out there. I've noticed that. And I can't be caught. Don't you realize it? I cannot be caught.
Why are you yelling?
You think I'm making this stuff up? Google it. I don't know, Kim. I've had a long night.
Google it. You going to be all right?
Wes, thank you for the super sticker. That's what I can be bought into a good mood. Thank you very much, Wes. Big shout out. Thank you for the 5 spot. We are crowdfunded and appreciate your contributions. I got up this morning, and which is always a blessing. Every day I get up is a blessing. I hear that. I wasn't trying to catch you, Mark. I was making sure I understood what you said. Chill, Mark. Probably did overreact a little bit.
I'm bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Thank you. I wanted to say that too. Thank you.
Julia came home from New York at midnight last night. I picked her up from the high school, talked to her about how her trip was, and everything was chill. Oh, it was chill. This was chill. It was chill.
Oh, that's the new...
that's the new thing.
That's the vernacular of
I guess you picked
generation.
Up chill while you were in New York, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
She didn't come home with any new tattoos or piercings, did she?
No, not that I know of. I
that
haven't
is the
fully
next thing.
inspected her, but yeah.
That is the next thing. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I got up and I went back and checked on my, it's my responsibility to go in and check the cats.
Yes.
And, where they're older and they're kind of not super healthy. My older boy is really, sadly, having some issues. And he's marking or peeing. I'm a little unclear as to whether it's marking or peeing.
Right.
So I go in there, and I don't usually do this in socks. And, of course, he's peed. Normally he pees just outside the box. But in this case, he's peed on the floor. And you can't see it because it's on the carpet. And
oh, no.
And so I'm stepping, I go, oh, that is something wet. And
Ew.
That wetness. So I put my hand down, and it's like a wide area in which he peed.
Yikes.
So, yeah, I don't mean to, but I'm just saying that's a 15-minute exercise by which you get the special stuff out,
Yeah.
Then he showed me his tattoo and piercing, and then I knew that
okay?
it was. Yeah, that's all. Okay, well, we've all got our.
There's never been anything like this.
My coworker did the initial buy and dump and made a quick $2K off the Trumpers, says Heather. Wow, very
Nice.
well done. I love
And this is their new hoax.
I love it. Yeah, hoax the hoaxsters. I love it. If we'd all bought Apple stock back in the 80s and held on to it, says Doug Koch, we'd be relaxing on the beach in the Bahamas right now. Yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
What do you use for cat pee, asks Lori. These are the things I really want to do a show about, Albert. Why can't we do a show about cleaning up cat pee?
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
What don't I use for cleaning up cat pee? I mean, there's every product in the imaginable.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at the.
Janet has a good idea for you. Not that this is the most exciting of topics, but yes, Mark, you need to get the pads to put around the box. So, yeah.
Well, let me tell you, Janet, I'm way ahead of you. Not only do I put pads around the box, which I've done for years, but now he pees so frequently, twice a day right now, on, outside the box, that I put 10 pads on top of each other so that I just need to pull the pad off and put it in the trash. I don't need to actually lift everything up, put a new pad out. So to reduce essentially the amount of work I have to do, I put 10 pads down. I just pull them. So, but if you're doing it twice a day, that's only 5 days. So, Mark, you need to get the litter called Catatract. It's made by the company Dr. Elsey's. I've had Catatract. The problem isn't that that's not a bad idea, Brian. Thank you for that. But the problem is he's troubled. You know what I mean? He's got physical challenges, and that's really what's going on. It's not so much that he doesn't, understand that he should be going in the cab. But actually, maybe it's worth a try again. So I wanted this Florida Supreme Court story, but now I got to wait on it. It's pretty big. It involves women's reproductive rights. And I'll wait until after Kim's news. And then we have Jeff coming in, Jefferson Graham, Tech Tuesday, and David Cay Johnston in the second hour, along with Professor Andy, or I call him Andy. Nobody else calls him Andy, because I remember Jim Eason calling him Andy.
Yeah.
But he, I think, likes Andrew. So I have to, please remind me if I step out, I've got to do the, I've got to do the apology.
I call him Professor Fraknoi.
Yeah, that's probably smart.
Yeah.
I misspoke.
Yes, when I said Andy, I misspoke. So we are, and I will just remind you, in the middle of a good one.
Mark's Madness.
Commish, I can only imagine how the early voting is going. But right now, before you update the voting, let me just remind everyone, you are voting right now for either shit, or
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
either or
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
This is Mark's Madness, the final four. You'll vote live now and until midnight tonight in the community section of our YouTube channel. Commish, in early voting, who's ahead?
To my Kim's up, so I'm feeling really good. So.
Oh yeah, well you have to understand, Albert doesn't want that producer's got no idea what he's doing to do well. So
I felt bullied into including it in this year's bracket.
Chit is the odds-on favorite to win it all. So that's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah, the sports books have that one, the new favorite, like halfway through the bracket. So you're not making not much return on that one.
The world is loving chit, chit, chit.
I blame you.
Well, Kim, you said it, not me. So you can blame whoever you want.
Now that you said it, it's going to go down to defeat.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Well,
I blame you.
All right.
Party over.
Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
Hit us with a thumbs up. It helps. Kim's News, Jefferson Graham with Tech Talk. We've got the Pulitzer Prize winner, David Cay Johnston, in the second hour. Good stuff ahead. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. President Biden spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping by phone today. It was the first time in months that's happened. The White House says the two leaders discussed a range of critical issues, including China's support for Russia amid its war with Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East and Taiwan, and the South China Sea. The call coming just days before Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's scheduled trip to Beijing. This is yet another Trump story, but he's Trump now pushing for the New York judge in his hush money criminal trial to recuse himself. The judge is Juan Merchan, who ruled Trump is not allowed to attack the judge's family members or those of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who issued an expanded gag order on the former president. So Trump called Merchan biased, noted that his daughter was the president of a progressive political consulting firm that reportedly worked with President Biden and Vice President Harris. Trump, of course, charged with falsifying business records in an effort to cover up an alleged sexual encounter with porn actress Stormy Daniels. It's the hush money case. Yeah. And so, again, now Trump wants the judge to recuse himself. For some reason, I don't think the judge is going to do that. No,
it's of the things that Trump has done, the request for recusal is one of them that doesn't bother me so much. It's the threats against Biden's life, the threats against the life of the judge. I mean, literally, Trump has, I think, has incited the kinds of threats to violence around the judge, around his daughter, around people who are in service of the court. That bothers me way more than just calling for the judge's recusal, but that's just me.
There's a group of House Republicans, as you mentioned, that would like to rename the Washington, D.C. area's largest airport after former President Trump. Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Rentschler has introduced a bill that calls for Washington's Dulles International Airport to change its name. It would be called, if they get their way, the Donald J. Trump International Airport. Where are you flying in? Flying into Trump. 6 other Republicans have so far co-sponsored the bill. The proposal does not appear to have a great chance of making it through Congress, I'll say. Republicans are seeing their majority in the House shrink after some resignations, and it would also have to be passed by the Democratic-controlled Senate.
Well, there's never been anything like this.
Well, I remind you that Dulles was John Foster Dulles. He was the Secretary of State, Cold War, back in the time of, communist Eastern Bloc, Cold War times. John Foster Douglas was that guy, Secretary of State. And I've been in and out of Dulles, more than most employees because that's where I grew up. And at the time, it was a super modern airport. They have brought it up to speed now with the new modern times, and it's kind of cool. But so that's the story on the airport. But now let me tell you something that is just a fact of now and Donald Trump. You understand that there are homeowners associations who live in Trump buildings, and the old Trump Hotel is another example of places trying to remove his name because it is such a stink on the building, on their real estate values, and on the hotel. So it's odd to me that even as these Republicans are launching this effort in Congress to rename this airport after Donald J. Trump, the reality is people are trying to pry the name Trump off of buildings that had the Trump name for years. It's a weird kind of reality that we're living in now. And again, it's a way of Republicans to kind of pledge their fealty to this guy, Trump. Crazy.
I mean, people are trying to pry, damage, vandalize his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, right? If they can't even leave the star alone, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
He's a radioactive brand. I mean, except for the true believers.
There's an Arizona Democratic Congressman, Raul Grijalva, who his office just announced that he has cancer. He reportedly received testing for a persistent cough a few weeks back. In a statement, Grijalva called the news difficult. He said he's confident, though, in his fight against this illness. The congressman represents Arizona's 7th congressional district. It's based in Tucson, and it is the 2nd largest congressional district in that state. So sad that he has to go through that.
Yeah, that's not good news.
Presidential primaries underway in several states today. You've got voters in Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin all casting ballots for their preferred presidential candidate. At this point, both President Biden and Donald Trump have locked up their party's nominations, but the remaining contests give voters a chance to show their support or opposition to the presumptive nominee. President Biden is expected to face another round of protest votes over his handling of the war in the Gaza area, as activists are urging voters to be uncommitted or leave their ballots blank. So that is happening in that area. Meanwhile, speaking of that part of the world.
And people are saying that I should be dinging presumptive. I don't see presumptive as a ding word. I mean,
I don't think so.
It's a ding word I'll ding it once, but I don't want to ding it every time we use it because it's clearly now a big part of news stories and all the rest. But you're right.
It's kind of just the way that, you have to call the nominees. So
yeah, it's almost terminology, but it's true. Those people saying that it should be a dingable word, that's absolutely true. So I will ding it. Presumptive is a ding word.
How about I'll try to use it in another way today, and then it will really be a dingable word. Iran says it will hit back after an alleged Israeli strike right near the Iranian embassy in Syria. They say killed at least 7 people. Iran's supreme leader putting out a statement noting the loss of a senior Iranian commander in that strike. He said he would make Israel regret the death of that commander.
By the way, a supreme leader is very strong branding, everybody. I just want to note that, I have a thing. I know good branding when I hear it, and supreme leader is very strong. Like, it wouldn't work on this show, and maybe in this country it doesn't work as well, but if you're really, I think in some of these Middle Eastern countries, maybe depending on the society and culture, it's a very strong brand, supreme leader. And it's a hell of a business card. I just think it's a really, really, anyway, I had to remark on it. When I heard it, I thought, I don't know, supreme leader, strong, very strong.
Democrats have their sights set on Florida after the state Supreme Court ruled Monday that a 6-week abortion ban can take effect. The court decided the abortion ban can go into effect May 1st. They also, though, ruled that an initiative to codify abortion rights can be on the ballot in November. The ruling comes as the House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries will lead a congressional field hearing in Fort Lauderdale today on reproductive rights. The Biden campaign, meanwhile, said it believes President Biden can win in the state of Florida in the general election, as abortion rights will be front and center this election cycle. Biden's campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, says Donald Trump has personally paved the way for what she called the extreme abortion ban. So, and
this is the story I wanted to do, so I'm so glad you did it. It's insanely troubling what's happening in Florida with the ban on women's reproductive rights when it comes to pregnancy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, that ruling also means voters in Florida will decide on 2 constitutional amendments when they head to the polls in November. They will both need 60% of the vote to pass. One would protect a woman's access to an abortion until fetal viability. 67% of people polled said they would vote yes to the proposed amendment, allowing the sale and use of recreational marijuana in the state of Florida as well. So they have some big things coming up on their ballot, which might mean with abortion rights and recreational marijuana on the ballot that you're going to see a pretty big turnout there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this is what I've been talking about since voter turnout has become such an important part of voting in America. You've got to put these issues on the ballot. Otherwise, you may not ensure the kind of voter turnout that you need.
Here at UC Davis, the subject of a new federal rights complaint filed Monday alleges the university here in Northern California turned a blind eye to anti-Semitic harassment on campus. Stand With Us Center for Legal Justice says the university has tacitly endorsed speech by employees that violates Jewish students' rights. One incident involved a faculty post on X calling out the Zionist journalists who spread propaganda and misinformation. The American Studies professor went on to say more about that. The post was decorated with some pretty disturbing images. The chancellor called the comments revolting, but officials are concerned about discipline for free speech, which may be protected by the First Amendment. So there's a lot going on there.
That's straight up anti-Semitism going on there. Straight up, the Zionist, whatever they said, it's absolutely straight up anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Well, and when there was a bunch of knife and axe and blood emojis decorating the comment as well. I mean, it was not pretty. Yeah. Sean Diddy Combs reportedly will not be invited to the Met Gala this year. This after his homes were raided by federal investigators. You think he's got more going on to worry about than the Met Gala?
I wonder how long a meeting that was on that. Yeah.
He won't be invited. Like, really? Whatever. According to Radar Online, the music mogul has been removed from the guest list for the May event in New York. A source claims that the industry has distanced itself away from Diddy while he fights accusations of sex trafficking. Diddy, of course, denying the allegations. I really don't think, of all the things he has to worry about right now with his homes being raided, trafficking allegations, I mean, maybe he cares that the Met Gala says no thank you, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's not on his top 10 list.
No, they don't care. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And I'll tell you, I care about this very much. I've got a cup full, and I placed another order just a couple of days ago because I was running out of tea bags and the tea that I like. So
yes, I'm drinking it right now myself. As a matter of fact.
But whether it's the coffee, the espresso, the tea, it is a huge selection available at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So when you go to checkout, make sure you enter in the code area MARK T all together, and you get your exclusive Mark T 10% off. So beautiful. And the coffee and the tea, simply divine.
It's a great, look, yeah. I'm so proud of our association with Coachella Valley Coffee. They're great people. They do the right thing in terms of their business, as you know. They support a lot of small businesses in Latin America and Africa that need that support. There is a coupon code and discount, and it's Fresh Grow, First Grow. I mean, I understand why you can find cheaper coffee on the internet or wherever, because that is old grow. Yeah. That's what they do. They discount coffee beans in other places, and then they look like they're the best deal in town. Coachella Valley Coffee only, and they hand roast. I just talked to the roaster, the head roaster, to have him back on. He said, yeah, I'm roasting. He said, we've got a lot of demand. He said, but I want to make sure that I don't want to go to automation. He said, it's all hand roasted. It's an amazing kind of boutique-y place, and I encourage you to try it in all the ways that we talk about on this show all the time. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
So I love my iced tea, and I used to stop every day on the way to pick up the kids to school and get an iced tea. It was like my daily thing I did for myself. I got a little iced tea, a little refreshing in the afternoon. And I don't do that anymore. And it's saved me a lot of money because I get a bag of my Coachella Valley tea and make it at home. And then I have a couple of big cups. I drink it. I mean, it's saving me money. So I think a bag of tea is like $10, $11, and it lasts me more than a month. So it's actually saving me money. I'll just say that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love to hear it.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm
right
Kim
on,
McAllister,
baby, right
and
on.
this is The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is The Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Right on, everybody. Right on. And we are in the middle.
Mark's Madness.
It's the Final Four in Mark's Madness. You are voting right now, this hour. And you're voting for either chit or
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
oh my gosh, it's either or
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're
it's
doing.
chit versus producer no idea. You can vote till midnight tonight in the community section of our YouTube channel or live right now. It's all pretty terrific. So good luck, and may the better drop win. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
this guy slides in on Tuesdays. We call it Tech Tuesday because he is the former tech writer for USA Today, wrote there for a long time. Then he flipped him the bird, and he hit the road, does his own thing now on YouTube. Photo Walks TV. He has a Substack. He's never done better than he's doing now. And he joins us regularly to talk tech. How about it for Jefferson Graham, everybody?
What do you hear? What do you say?
Look at you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question for you. I have a question for
yes,
you
sir.
before you get started. What's
Yes,
going
sir.
on behind you? Did you paint
So
the wall black? What happened?
I'm beta testing right now. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
I've heard
but
of it.
I'm beta
Yeah.
testing a darker background. And I've decided I do want a darker background behind me. I did not like the white louvered blinds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, on the cheap, because we don't have any money on this show, I put up these things that are behind me. Now we are going to, I am going to a more elevated and stylish kind of fix ultimately. But right now, that's what you're seeing is kind of a janky beta test of the darker background. So
what did you do? Did you just put a sheet up there?
no, I did not. Didn't just put up a sheet. How dare you? I mean,
I have
how
sheets
dare
all
you
over the
speak
place.
to me that
Do
way?
you know who I am?
I'm
kind of a
I'm
big
not
deal.
a sheet guy, Jefferson Graham.
A backdrop, a black backdrop.
What I did was I put up, and honestly, I'm a bit embarrassed because that would have been a good idea, a lot even less money and maybe easier. I put up acoustic stuff. This is sponge acoustic stuff. I also will tell you that I felt that the room was too live, too much bounce to voice here. So I actually wanted something that would be acoustically deadening. So that's what I did behind me. So,
Okay, so the listeners know that ain't cheap. Buying that stuff's not cheap.
well, I mean, it's true that we have to spend on certain things, and technology is one of them. But I will tell you that I did this. It wasn't expensive. It really wasn't. It wasn't even. Yeah.
Compared to a sheet, it's expensive.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, honestly, I can actually show it to you. I went with the cheapest, and putting it up was not easy. So I think that from a pure capital effort standpoint, it was pretty cheap. But yeah, it was not. It was not too pricey.
Well, I think it's looking pretty good.
Anyway, it's kind of interesting to hear you say that. I will tell you what I like, and maybe we can address this in our next session.
Yes.
Is I like the lighting on you. Let's leave aside the background. I like the lighting on you more than I like the lighting on. You've lit me up like a Broadway performer here, which which is much better. The audience says we just like the lighting so much more, etc. But I'd love to have more of the kind of shaded lighting that you have. I mean, look at your face; it's just much more contoured than is mine. Mine is just a big, bright image. And so that's what my goal is, that we get closer to the lighting on your
We're going
face.
to put another light up here is what we're going to do.
Okay.
So
we'll figure out a way to do that. Now on with
On
things
with the
I wanna
show.
ask
On with
you
the
about.
show.
Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Jefferson Graham, you wrote for USA Today for so many years on technology, and many of those years you were talking about Gmail, the Google mail service, and free mail service. There's a time when we had to pay for mail service, right?
I got Gmail the day it came out, and I was stupid because I could have gotten Jeff at Gmail, right? I could have.
Yes.
I got Jefferson Graham at Gmail, and but I could have gotten Jeff at Gmail. So I've been using it since the first day, and it was radical back then because you used to have very limited space from AOL and Microsoft and Hotmail, and they only gave you, what was it, 2 megabytes or something insanely insane. right? Maybe 200 megabytes, and you were constantly dealing with overflow from your inbox. And Gmail said was it 1 gig for free? 1,000 emails for free. It was a lot. Back then, it was a lot, and it looked cleaner than AOL and Microsoft. Hotmail was still thriving back then, 20 years ago, in 2004, and people just flocked to it. And at this point today, it's like used by 25%, if not more, of the internet world. But we still have an issue. Everything is not free like it once was. So,
how now is the world of Gmail extracting money from you?
Okay,
because signing up for it is free.
It's free to sign up, and you get 15 gigabytes of storage, which is fine.
Lot.
Well, theoretically, I have used 62.48 gigabytes of storage in my Gmail. Okay. Right. And that's because I'm not diligent about deleting like a madman, but I think everybody is in the same boat that I am. You wake up and there's 100 emails from a newsletter, from a promotion, from a this, from a that, from a whatever. You try to stay on top of it, but you just can't. And if I wanted to spend a few months deleting, I could. I mean, it takes a long time. It's a very slow process.
Let me ask you about deleting. When it says archived, is that deleted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually.
Okay.
It's deleted, but then they'll get rid of it in 30 days.
Okay.
I have 103,000 emails that haven't been opened.
Well, I mean, you're inundated by all kinds of email now. There's another one. Oh, jeez.
That's
I would
Henry.
tell you to turn up that ringer, but I don't think you can turn it up any higher.
Yeah, that's Henry, who has his own ringtone.
I see.
Yeah.
So back in the old days, as you suggest, of Hotmail and AOL mail, in fact, they were the Mac daddies with the "You've got mail." I mean, that was the AOL. I didn't think they would ever be dethroned. What happened?
Gmail just did it better and stayed on top of things and kept on adding improvements. I have downloaded AOL Mail and Yahoo Mail in the last 2 days, and I'm stunned. It looks like it did in 2004. Yahoo Mail is still purple. AOL Mail is still riddled with ads. They said that for $5 a month, I could get rid of the ads, but only on the desktop, not on the phone.
That's just wild.
Yeah.
And there is a weird cool factor that there is a group of people who have AOL, I know, who are kind of like, screw everybody and the new kind of Gmail and everything. I'm sticking with AOL. It's kind of like flipping the bird to, the evolution of various technologies or various websites. But in general, it is weird how now Gmail is sort of the default. It's what AOL was.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's not just Gmail. It's Google Drive, right? And all the other Google services that just go hand in hand. And anybody who gets an Android phone has Gmail. It just comes standard. So that's Samsung Galaxy and Google Pixels, and then all those phones all over the world that we don't even know about. But it used to be you couldn't send photos that were over a certain size, and you had to go to Photo Bucket. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
you went to Photo Bucket to get a smaller version and then to put the link into an email. And now you just goes to Google Drive and you could put as many pictures as you want in there. It just eats into your space. Now everybody gets 15 gigabytes for free on Google. And if they want more, they have to pay. And that's sort of the dilemma that people have at this point. I pay for 3 terabytes of space a month for $10. But I got some sweetheart deal. Most people, it's 2 terabytes for $10. But I've used 2 terabytes of my 3, and I don't know how to get rid of all the other stuff. And it's intertwined with Google Photos and Google Mail, Gmail, and Google Drive. And I'll be paying a lot for the rest of my life. All I know is that.
Doris says she uses AOL still. Easier to delete, she says. And
my wife has AOL.
Yeah?
And I told her it's embarrassing to me and that she needs to upgrade. but she refuses to listen to me. Okay.
What?
But what happens to Ruth is they delete her old emails whether she likes it or not. And I wonder if Doreen has that issue.
Well, there are all sorts of issues. John says, I seem to get a lot of emails saying I've won a power drill set from Home Depot. Or $2 a year for HBO. I don't know why they always choose $2 a year. There is an inundation of spam that is almost unavoidable. Like even if you were to create a new email address for yourself every month, the spamsters find you.
But let's give props to Gmail because they did add this section of promotions and what's the other category? I forget. There's three categories: social, and promotions, and they've done a very good job of just tossing all the junk into those other two tabs, which I don't think the other people are doing. I will say that if you don't have Gmail, your other choice is Outlook.com, and it's not bad, but I think Gmail's a lot better.
Quickly before I lose you, Jefferson Graham, tell me what you might advise for taking eclipse pictures.
Taking eclipse pictures on your phone, you need to get a solar filter. It's not too late. Today's Tuesday. You can still order it from Amazon and have it tomorrow. Local camera stores have it as well. And you will tape it over your lens. And then you need to have the glasses. Your photo of the eclipse is not going to be great. It's going to be a small little sun. I recommend taking a video of the world changing within 4 minutes when it's bright and then it starts getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and then it's black and then it lights up again. That's what's really interesting. And that's what you can do really well on your phone, whether that be a video or a time lapse.
One note is that we've taken this pair of binoculars, they're solar binoculars, to 2 different eclipses, and they work. Again, it's such a specialized thing. You may not want it, but it's not expensive, the binoculars. But you may want to grab a pair if you're really serious about seeing the eclipse, or you're in a place where there is. We have a lot of listeners in New York, Buffalo, New York. I've just got a couple of emails from people there. They will be seeing the eclipse, although it looks like cloud cover may stand in the way. But more to the point, those binoculars do work. We use them, and again, only useful to look into the sun. They're not, you can't see anything through them the rest of the time, but they are also orderable from Amazon. So
Buffalo, Indianapolis, Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio, Austin, Texas, San Antonio, St. Louis, those are the hot spots this year.
Yeah, for sure. And otherwise, you're looking south of the border. Mexico has some pretty good views of it as well. Jeff, thank you. PhotoWalks TV and Jefferson Graham on Substack. Love talking to you, and a lighting project is in your future. So
okay, I look forward to it.
Jefferson Graham, everybody.
I'll send you a Gmail.
All right. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is. It's a big day here. We're into the Final Four. I don't know how you're handling things, Commish, on the Final Four. Before I get to David Cay Johnston, do you want to update us on the voting in the last round?
Yes. So it
was Chit versus and the voting is until midnight tonight in the community section of our YouTube channel. But where is it right now?
It's looking good for me. I'm just putting it here in the chat. We have 55% to chit to the other drop that I won't even say, 44%.
Yeah, so it's producer versus chit's at 55%, which means it will go on to the next round. Producer No Idea is trailing right now. You can vote until midnight tonight. So that's where we are on that. But right now, it is the second hour. And in the second hour, it is the second half.
Mark's Madness.
The second half of Mark's Madness. The tradition continues. And this is the OG drop going up against Obelix. It's either...
Why are you yelling?
Going up against...
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
That's right. It's idiots...
Why are you yelling?
Versus why are you yelling?
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
You can vote live now in the chat or until midnight in the community section of YouTube. So good luck.
It's a Cinderella story, Mark. We'll see if Cinderella can make it to the end for 30 to 35%.
Obelix is a Cinderella story. So there you go.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and when it comes to Trump, there is no one in the world, maybe, who knows the subject better. The co-founder of DCReport.org, multiple best-selling author, David Cay Johnston, everybody.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. I saw, and I smiled as I saw it, if I can just start with something lighter, that there is a move in Congress now to actually rename Dulles Airport after Donald Trump. It's extraordinary. I was saying before that it's like, I guess they have to express their fealty in even more inventive ways, this little group of Congress people. But I thought of you immediately when I saw it.
Well, I'm sure these are the same folks who would vote to rename the Capitol Mall for Benedict Arnold. This is, it's not going to go anywhere. It is solely designed to say, see how loyal I am to Trump.
Right.
And that's the kind of nonsense you have when you've got a cult. And that's what we're dealing with, is a cult.
Well, if you have a thought as to what they should name after Donald Trump, you can put it in the chat. Or put it in comments after.
There's a very large landfill near Buffalo. Rises up about 300 feet above the surrounding land.
Yeah, sewage treatment I could see being a spot also. There you go.
Well, many years ago, 50 years ago, Frank Dill, who was the dominant morning radio personality at KNBR in San Francisco,
sure,
he actually had a sewage treatment plant. I think it's still named after him in Marin County. Sewage treatment plant 2, the Frank Dill plant.
I'd be proud to have a sewage treatment plant named after. At least I know there's clean water coming out of there. All right, David, what about the Trump bond? Can you give us some thoughts on this? Start, if you would, please. We'll start where you want. But what was striking was what we've noted last time, I think, in our conversation, which was the reduction of the bond. It made it a more doable number. I mean, even though it's a huge number.
It is not unusual for courts to reduce bonds when they're very large amounts of money. I mean, the most famous case about this was the Pennzoil Texaco Chevron case, and the bond there was reduced by far more than this. 175 million is almost exactly half of the underlying fraud award of 353 million. So I think it's pretty clear what the court did here. What should trouble us is that Donald got this bond from an outfit in California that does bonds, Knight something something. But we don't know what's behind that bond. I mean, for all we know, one of Vladimir Putin's gang, the oligarchs, the second wave oligarchs, put up the money. Now, Judge Arthur Engoron, who presided over the 7-week persistent fraud trial in New York, directed the monitor, Judge Barbara Jones, to look into the circumstances of Donald Trump's bond in the second E. Jean Carroll defamation case. That's the $83.3 million award that she won. And I expect he will, especially if Letitia James asks, inquire into, the nature of this bond. Now, if Donald got it by pledging cash and securities and nobody else was involved, that's fine. But he got the previous bond from a Swiss insurance company, Chubb. And all of this fundamentally should be very disturbing to us as a national security concern. And here's a way to think about it. A lot of Trumpers believe, Barack Obama is really a Kenyan, ineligible to have been president. What if you found out that the dictator in one of the African countries had put up the money for Barack Obama? What if it was some Canadian mogul who put up money for Barack Obama for something? They would be all over it. And we need to be concerned. The framers of our Constitution thought very carefully about who could and could not put money in the pocket of the president without explicit permission from Congress. Neither foreign powers nor the state governments are supposed to be able to put money in the pocket of the president while in office. Donald, of course, just flagrantly abused both of those and ignored them. And the courts found ways to get rid of every single case that was brought in an effort to say, wait a minute, these are violations of the Emoluments Clause, basically by saying, you don't have any standing, citizen. Well, who does have standing? I mean, his attorney general, Congress. In any event, it just never occurred to them that we'd have a president of the United States who could be in hock to someone for so much money that they would have leverage over the president. So I think we do need to know about this. And should Donald Trump get back to the White House, I think it's going to be imperative that there be a serious inquiry into the circumstances, because it's long been suspected. Nobody has any proof of this, that Donald's Deutsche Bank loans may have been partially, at least, what are called back-to-back loans. So let's say, Mark, your kids want to start a business and they need $250,000, and they say, "Hey, Dad, loan us $250,000," and you don't want to be in that position. So you go to your banker and say, "Listen, I'll deposit $250,000. You make the loan. You tell the kids you're making the loan. If they flake out and the business fails, you can take my $250,000. But this way I'm insulated from that, and they now have to behave in a more commercial way." Well, we don't know that happened with Deutsche Bank. We do know that Deutsche Bank was fined over $600 million for laundering Russian money, that they overall paid over $10 billion in fines, which is not the highest of all banks, but relative to their size is gigantic. And that when Ackerman, the head of that bank, was finally pushed out, what did he do? Well, he went to Cyprus, where he became the CEO of the Bank of Cyprus, whose vice chairman was Donald Trump's commerce secretary, and whose other vice chairman was an appointee of Vladimir Putin, and which is known primarily for laundering money for Russians and Russian criminals. So it's not like there's not smoke here, but to be very clear, it's only smoke. There's been no fire.
But the stuff that you talk about, the scenarios you talk about, David, by the way, if anybody has a question or comment for David, just put it in the chat and we'll try to get to it. David will take your questions as he does every week. But as you talk about it, I think about the fact that were this a GSer or another government official, maybe GSer is the wrong idea, like a middle management person, but anyone trying to get security clearance for the government, these are the kinds of things that would generally force a rejection of security clearance, right? Any kind of...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're compromised so substantially because of your debt.
Yeah, because we've elected someone president, of course, there is no security clearance. And we know as a fact that Donald Trump gave away incredibly important national security secrets to the Russians. He did so in May of 2017 when he met with them in the Oval Office, the Foreign Secretary Lavrov and the Ambassador Kislyak, and didn't tell anybody about it. And we only learned at the meeting when the Russians then bragged about, "Oh, well, we just met with Donald Trump." And then very shortly after that, the national security apparatuses of a number of countries, the Netherlands, England, Australia, and Israel, if I recall correctly, let it be known to journalists who cover national security that Donald Trump had given the Russians what are called sources and methods. How we learned this and from whom. And shortly after that, there was on live Russian television, which is state television, cameras following a bunch of big guys in suits who walked into a meeting, threw a bag over the head of the guy running the meeting. He's never been seen or heard from since. And it's been rumored, again, not proven, that Donald had outed this guy. And I can see Donald, knowing him well, saying, "Oh, I got a guy in the Kremlin named Sergei so-and-so, and he tells us everything you do. He told us last week such and such." Because Donald doesn't have any sense that you don't do that kind of thing. It's just not part of who he is.
It's such an extraordinary, he's so impulse driven, and yes. That impulsivity is just something that, as you say, actually can destroy lives. And in that spirit, I want to just talk about the broadening gag order, David Cay Johnston. His threats, and they may be veiled, they may not even be so thinly veiled, these threats against the judge and the daughter, and the daughter of the judge I'm talking about. And so it's caused the judge to broaden the gag order on Trump. He, at the same time that's happening, seems to be provoked or otherwise, in his little obstructive way, trying to go after that gag order. That is to say, violate that gag order. Could you speak to that?
I think he's trying to provoke Judge Juan Merchan into putting him behind bars, to remanding him. Now, remember, if you are out on bail, you're not a free citizen. You are only out on bail because a judge has allowed you to be there. And clearly, he's trying to provoke Judge Marchand, hoping he'll make a mistake. Now, the trial is so close that I doubt the judge, no matter what happens, is going to throw Donald in jail. Where you're going to hear the results of this is when sentencing comes. And that's going to be a speech that, I hope we get to hear broadcast live as it happens, because that's where the judge is going to penalize him and be very tough on him. He might even order him taken into custody on the spot. That is a distinct possibility given what he has done. That'd be very unusual in a white-collar crime case, but Donald has more than earned it. And if the judge were to remand him, I doubt there's a judge anywhere in the country who would dispute that, unless they're an Eileen Cannon bow down.
We'll get to her in a second. Eileen Cannon or Clarence Thomas, maybe. So you, just to review for everyone who might just be joining us for the first time, you do believe, despite all of the tactics to delay and all of the tactics to get around the legal process, you believe that Donald Trump will actually do time.
Oh, yeah, no, I believe that for a long time. I believe there's a very good chance that he will die in prison. I mean, if he's convicted in the insurrection case, the sentences, that is the largest criminal prosecution in the history of the United States. And there's a database, or a couple of them, I believe, but one in particular I've looked at, that show here was the charged crime and here was the punishment. And there's a very clear pattern here. People who just went into the building get very minor charges. People who assaulted police officers. And so the organizers of the two big groups, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, they both got, in round numbers, 20 years. And that tells you that if Donald is convicted, the sentence he will get will be longer than theirs. And at his age, that's a life sentence. Now, just a reminder, I've said this on the show before. I was the first person in the country to say it on, I think NBC, I think CNN, but it may have been MSNBC. Nothing in our Constitution would prevent a convicted felon in prison from serving as president of the United States. Hopefully, the House would impeach and 2/3 of the Senate would vote to convict to prevent this ridiculousness, but nothing would prevent it. So if Donald Trump is convicted on a state charge, he's going to have people coming to see him, and he's going to be president behind bars. If it's a federal charge, I don't think even this Supreme Court would uphold a self-pardon. There have been court decisions that signal they wouldn't do so without saying so. But they certainly might stay a sentence, and Donald, as president, of course, can dismiss all the cases against him if he hasn't been convicted. So, we'll see. All this is uncharted territory.
Yes, I mean, it really is. We're in that world. Josh is saying, I think the judge is also weighing the likelihood of violence if he were to be put in prison over the gag order.
I agree with you. I think there is a risk of that, but let me be clear about something. We do not do our duty because there will be violence or threats of violence. If we end up with, as we did on January 6th, some police officers who are killed or seriously injured, or anyone else, I feel awful about that, but we are not going to bend the law to someone who uses threats of violence and cower. It is not our place to cower. And we cannot do that, or we're not going to have the rule of law.
None of this matters, says George. The Supreme Court has already delayed that case, the one that you're talking about, David, the J6 case, beyond the election.
I think they have. I mean, I think it's still possible to get tried, but I suspect what they're going to do is send it back to the trial court on what's called remand, just like putting you in jail is on remand, for further proceedings, as dumb as that is. I mean, the Supreme Court's behavior here is atrocious. When the court wants to act on something, Gore v. Bush, they act with lightning speed. Yeah. When they don't want to, they delay. And they're certainly doing their very best to make sure that there is no trial until after the election. Now, if Trump loses in the election, I see very little reason to delay any of these things, and he will get the full measure of justice he deserves.
This is something I was going to get to anyway, so let me just bring up Phineas. David Cay Johnston, please address the Florida documents case and Justice Cannon's jury instructions that put Jack Smith in a quagmire and won't let him prosecute Trump. Yeah, this is very much of the moment, and it's quite an extraordinary thing that
Well,
Judge
the most
Eileen
recent
Cannon's
thing
done.
that Judge Cannon has done, she's the one who, in her very first opinion in the documents case, said Trump deserves special treatment, for which the 11th Circuit slapped her down. Nobody is special under American law. We're all equal. But her most recent is to say, well, if you want to proceed with this case, we're going to show all these sensitive national security documents to the jury. By and large, the jury wouldn't know what they mean. But more importantly, we've had lots of national security cases, and juries do not get to see what's in them. What they get is testimony, usually stipulated to by the defense, that this is what, in general, is the reason we're concerned. These documents would disclose, for example, foreign agents working for us overseas, or Americans who are spies, or other things. She's also basically proposed an instruction that says that the president determines which records are his personal records under the Presidential Records Act and which are not. Well, that's not what the statute says at all. It is completely wrong. Jack Smith's problem is that if he's going to challenge this judge to be removed, he's really got to have her removed. He can't risk not getting a removal order. But those proposed jury instructions, and remember, we're talking about jury instructions when there's no trial date right upon us. Lots of issues are unsettled. She's also, wants to make public all of the witnesses in advance, which would subject them to physical risk and harm. Hopefully, if there's a Democratic Party majority, she will be impeached over this and removed from office. She is clearly, in my view, unfit to sit on the federal bench.
As you say, she's suggesting and doing things that are, it would seem, almost deliberately exposing either court
She's trying to
personnel
blackmail Jack Smith.
Yeah.
You want to try this man, you're going to have to reveal in public all sorts of very, very high-level American national security secrets, which they're clearly not ever going to do. But this is just judicial blackmail.
So Smith could appeal, as you said, to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. That's a place where they've already...
He'll appeal that. The issue is, will he seek the removal of the judge?
Right.
That's a riskier proposition. If he appeals the order, I don't think there's any question that the 11th Circuit will slap her down, because this is not what the Presidential Records Act says. We've had many trials involving national security documents. This is not uncharted territory at all. And, I'll give her that she's a relatively new judge and the only judge in that jurisdiction. But beyond that,
right.
Just absolutely indefensible conduct.
Well, I was going to say, then I think that 11th Circuit has struck her down before, so we know that they've, that is likely. Again, David, this is. So let's just go with the appeal scenario. That's going to delay that trial even further. I mean, that trial is, I think it's so easy to understand. As you know, I've said this before. I think that documents case is the one that just hits you right between the eyes. Thousands of documents, top secret. What was he doing with them? It's easy to get your head around. You don't need to know numbers and finances.
And more importantly than that, Mark, lying and denying about the documents, moving them to hide them, and telling his lawyers to make statements that were false. Those are the badges of a fraud in this case. And one of the people in the argument says these are minute orders. He can't appeal yet. That's correct. There are briefs that have to be filed, and there's other procedural matters that have to happen. But this will end up going before the 11th Circuit. And, without asking the 11th Circuit, it could, on its own motion, remove Judge Cannon, which would be very important. Now, that'll push the clock back unless they get a judge who's really knows what they're doing and says, we're going ahead.
But if I want to see if there's another question. Oh, this is interesting. David asks, question for David Cay Johnston. Again, it's K as C-A-Y, not K, but I understand that. Probably a common mistake. David Cay Johnston, and it's Johnston. If there's an airport named after Trump, will he request royalties for licensing his name?
There's never been anything like this.
David Akers, thank you. That's very funny.
Really, really good stuff. All right, now I want to ask you about, there it is, Dulles International, named after John Foster Dulles, I should say, who, as I mentioned, was a big Cold War, he's a Cold War warrior, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to ask you about something that is Trump adjacent, but is not a message that comes from Trump. It comes from Steve Bannon. There's a lot that we've learned from Bannon and the crew that has concocted the 2025 plan for strategies they want to put into place to dismantle the administrative state. But this, Albert, do you have it? It's this is really more about revenge. This is and I'm just buying Albert a second or two to rally it. This is, it speaks to the venomous quality that is flowing through this crew that is part of this movement, the MAGA movement, as embodied by Steve Bannon. Here is what Bannon posted. Go ahead.
Evening after we've won, the accountability project's going to start, and it's going to be thorough this time. It's going to be, they're going to be in prison. Yes, prison.
This is something that looks more like at least an attempt at an aspect of the Putin playbook, where the use and singling out of government power against your opponents doesn't just take them off the table, or as it sometimes has been in Russia, worse, but it also sends a message to everyone else. Maybe you don't want to be associated with that. Maybe you don't want to be involved in that. Maybe you want to go back and just try to live your life and avoid being grouped in with this group of people that Mr. Bannon says are going to be in, quote, yes, prison. A Putin admission by a would-be Putin movement here in America.
There you go. Thank you. So that was the take of Ari Melber there. Is that who that is on MS? Anyway, the Bannon stuff is... Yeah, the Bannon stuff is pure toxicity, but it does reflect, as I say, a real plan, David Cay Johnston.
Well, you know, Steve Bannon, who was a United States naval officer, and that also should trouble us. Steve Bannon has for many years been an advocate of essentially overthrowing our democracy. And I don't think he's tried to hide it. I think he's dangerous to the extent that people believe what he tells them. And if there's a second Trump administration, don't be, sanguine about this. It will be the end of our democracy. People will be rounded up. He will try to use the military, which he may or may not succeed with, because after all, military officers take an oath to the Constitution, but not to the president, an oath that's taken by grunts and sailors, but officers do not. If Trump gets in and starts firing generals and admirals and promoting captains and corporals, captains and colonels, you should really be very scared. And let's be clear, all dictatorships lead down the road to firing squads. I have absolutely no doubt that if Donald is able to make himself dictator of the United States, my life's going to get shortened by some lead bullets.
Well, that's
people this will happen to. And so it is critical that people don't look away. They don't say, I don't want anything to do with politics. I don't need to vote. I don't like either candidate. I'm not going to vote. Not voting for Jill Stein or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is voting for Donald Trump.
In our last few seconds, David, questions like this. David, do you think if Trump is reelected that they will seize our assets, retirement assets? No,
he's not. He doesn't have any authority to do that. And the courts aren't going to allow that. But what does he need to do that for? He'll be able to direct government spending where he wants. He'll have far more people staying at his properties and clamoring to pay and bid up prices. He doesn't need to steal your retirement savings to pull that off. If anything, what he's going to try to do is further lower taxes on big corporations and wealthy people, which means you're going to have less. He's spoken out of both sides of his mouth about Social Security, but I think the likelihood that he will try to lower Social Security and phase it out is extraordinarily high. And he certainly will go after the Affordable Care Act.
Well, he's not the first one to the Social Security Party. He is, right. He's joined by many Republicans.
I have the cover story in the Kiplinger Retirement Newsletter, and it is it's not an opinion piece, except there's one line at the end where I was asked to say what I think. It's a reported piece about what the real issues are in Social Security, and they're not what's being discussed in Congress about the financing of it. And the Kiplinger newsletter, under its current editor, who was the managing editor of DC Report, is much better than it used to be. It's actually full of useful information, and I'm going to be writing other pieces for him because it's got really useful stuff.
Albert, we'll chase that down and put that in the link on this video. So if you're watching this video now, it should be below, and we'll have that link.
Thank you, Albert.
Yeah, good stuff. David, thanks for your time. Always love talking to you. And wherever you show up and wherever you've written, it's always a good experience. So
we'll talk next week.
Okay, look forward to it. David Cay Johnston, everybody. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know. I know that there is a sense, there's a normalcy bias, which we all have, which is that, no, it's not going to get that bad. And, I see that in the chat. But, when all of these guys ride into Washington this time, I'd suggest to you respectfully, they didn't expect to ride into Washington in power the last time. Trump himself didn't expect to win. Read the Michael Lewis book, The Fifth Risk. They were not prepared to take power. It was a brand-building exercise that Trump was involved in. This time, they are going to be ready. That's what that 2025 plan is about. So when David talks about these things, I actually don't see them as wild exaggerations.
No.
If you look at the way dictatorships and authoritarianism has risen in the past in other countries, look at the process. It starts in the courts, and then it can end up in some really ugly places.
Look at what happened on January 6th. I never in my whole life thought I would see that happen in America. If that happened and they weren't really organized and they weren't together, right? And at that point, they didn't have all the right people handling the election offices in all the states. But look at what they've tried to do since. So now we're in a much scarier position, I think.
Yeah, it's true. It really is. So that's why I thought that Bannon cut was so very important, because it reflects not only a real sentiment, but a real plan, a real strategy. So, all right. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've got Professor Andrew Fraknoi coming up in the next half hour, but right now I'm in the middle of a good one.
Now, I can't believe it! Mark's Madness.
It is the Final Four in Mark's Madness. You are voting this hour for the OG of this show.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah. It's Why Are You Yelling versus...
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
It is Yelling versus Idiots. The OG versus the Cinderella story. Who will win? Vote now and good luck! It will go on until midnight tonight in the community section of our YouTube channel. So if you're watching or listening, you can still vote all the way up until midnight. Go into the YouTube channel, The Mark Thompson Show. You'll see videos, live, shorts, community. Click on that and you'll see the voting, and please be part of Mark's Madness as we wind down. So Commish, you as really the guy who's helped create the magic that is Mark's Madness this iteration, you have to be, I would think it's kind of a mixed bag for you. The producer, which I know you don't particularly like, that producer drop has made it all the way to the Final Four. And how do you see it from here? I'm curious always to get a little something from the commissioner's chair.
It just feels like it's going to be all new blood in the final. It feels like it's going to be the two Titans meeting, which is going to be our own Kim McAllister versus our former, I guess, maybe still
colleague.
current Jim Avila. He was there for the meet and greet, but
yeah,
it looks like the two Titans will finally meet in the finals, because it's both looking like early voting is leading towards that direction.
Yeah, Kim and that chit drop, they really seem, and a lot of people right out of the chute pick that chit to go all the way. I thought Oprah's What would get to the finals, but Oprah's What was eliminated. And
what?
Yeah, what was who eliminated Oprah What? Commish, do you have that? You know who it was?
I can pull up the bracket as well.
Yeah.
My husband has declared he does not like chit. He doesn't like it used against him in a court of law, no, in the House, and he would not vote for it. I asked him to vote for it. He said no.
Yeah, Good Day Sir was the #1 overall seed. Chit defeated Good Day Sir.
Yeah, and once that Good Day Sir was beaten.
Good day, sir.
By Chit, we knew that Chit was otherworldly in its power. And but who took out Oprah what, Kamish?
Oprah What is, unfortunately, the producer No Idea did take down.
Oh,
Oprah
wow.
What.
God, that's just extraordinary. I still can't get over that. Wow. I
thought about fudging the vote, but for all integrity purposes.
Well, the one thing you have, Albert, is integrity. You're not going to give that up, I wouldn't think.
I do reach that bar, Mark. So
yeah. So again, but this hour you're voting for.
Why are you yelling?
Why are you yelling versus 30%?
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
So again, live until the end of the show, and then into the community section at YouTube. And good luck. All right, Kim's news, and then the great professor of astronomy. He brings everything to life, and he will talk eclipse with us next. Professor Andrew Fraknoi. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let's talk about what is going on. Well, what's going on with me? Let's talk about what's going on in San Diego. The United States is now paying the power bill for a sewage facility in Mexico. That's right. The U.S. side of the International Boundary and Water Commission is now doing monthly inspections of a sewage pump in Tijuana, responsible for treating some of the wastewater being sent into San Diego. The Voice of San Diego says the group found the pump had been shutting down because the power bill wasn't being paid. So the United States is now paying for the electricity. The International Boundary and Water Commission, the IBWC, is also waiting for Mexico to repair a sewage pipe that broke last year, sending even more raw sewage into San Diego. So this becomes an international incident.
Jeez.
Well, this didn't work out as planned. No. In 2021, a move by Oregon voters to decriminalize various hard drugs, including fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine, took effect. Yesterday, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek signed legislation recriminalizing those. Oregon was the first state in the nation to decriminalize the possession and personal use of all drugs, but the governor says fentanyl has become a major problem. She said, "Our country and our state have never seen a drug this deadly and addictive, and we are grappling with how to respond." So she repeals what the voters had done, and under the new law, offenders could face up to 6 months in jail or in place of criminal penalties, elect to undergo drug treatment instead. So that didn't work out
this
very
is
well.
instructive, and it was a bellwether for this kind of disposition legally toward a real scourge, which is drug abuse. But and of course, the waste of law enforcement dollars spent on these drug abuse cases. But that said, you see what happens with unbridled legalization. They really have had an issue. And I think this spills over. I'd love to have a longer conversation another time about this, into the legalization of gambling. The legalization of gambling, and this comes to my world from a place of being a gambler. So I'm coming at it from I have had a lot of experience with gambling, and legalizing it is a bad idea. I understand that you're losing a lot of tax dollars and all the rest, and you're spending money on law enforcement, et cetera. You have to choose how it's enforced, but the notion of dropping the laws that are associated with gambling, which is clearly the way we're going, I think it's an awful idea, and I hope that California doesn't legalize gambling. I think it's an addiction on young people waiting to happen.
Well, it was an experiment, right? I mean, a lot of people have said, hey, decriminalize drugs, right? This is what we think will happen. Well, that's not what happened in Oregon. So it's a good testing ground for that. In the East Bay, Oakland police say they arrested 3 suspects for breaking into a business in the Embarcadero neighborhood. It's a relief to residents living in houseboats and on boats and yachts along the waterfront after almost a year of thefts and even physical assaults from a group of so-called East Bay pirates. Police say vagrants from the Oakland homeless camps used small boats to raid larger vessels. Last summer, the suspects stole boats, stripping them of belongings, and sinking ships or dumping their belongings miles away in the Oakland harbor. The suspects were seen on surveillance video breaking into a business March 13th. Search warrants of their boat turned up the stolen property, according to police. And lastly, because I know we have Professor Fraknoi waiting in the wings, here it is, the eclipse coming April 8th. It will reach Mexico's Pacific coast in the morning, cut diagonally across the United States from Texas to Maine, and then exit in eastern Canada by late afternoon. Most of the rest of the continent will see a partial eclipse. Ontario's Niagara region has declared a state of emergency because it's preparing to welcome up to 1 million visitors for the solar eclipse. Niagara Falls declared by National Geographic to be one of the best places to see it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's not fake. That's real.
Wow.
So they've declared a state of emergency because they're having so many people come in.
Jeez.
This report is sponsored by you, which means we do rely on you to help us share The Mark Thompson Show, fund The Mark Thompson Show, and like The Mark Thompson Show. Find us online at themarkthompsonshow.com. It is themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great. When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Yeah, we are on and feeling good in the middle of Mark's Madness. Back to it in minutes. This is the Final Four, so there's quite the contest going on, but I don't want to delay any further because this guy is a cherished part of Bay Area history who is still cherished and is still making history. He is the emeritus chair of the astronomy department at Foothill College. He's teaching at the University of San Francisco and San Francisco State, lead author of OpenStack's astronomy textbook. It's a way to bring textbooks for free to so many students who, again, can use some help with affording textbooks. When it comes to astronomy, I just think he's such a great ambassador for that world. How about it for Professor Andrew Fraknoi? Hello, sir.
Thank you. What a nice...
He's muted right now, but there he is. Yeah, good to talk to you, Andrew Fraknoi. My gosh, you're just you're the Bay Area's Neil deGrasse Tyson. You've brought it, and I used to call you the Bay Area's Carl Sagan because I think you just create this wonder and this world and making it all understandable. So, review for me what an eclipse is again, a solar eclipse, and how it's possible to see it, and even if it's not total, how we might also still be able to get a piece of it.
Well, great. Thank you so much. So this Monday, April 8th, the entire North American continent will experience, as you heard, this great sky spectacle, an eclipse of the sun. What happens is that the moon gets in front of the sun and blocks some, or in some places, all of its light. And that's an amazing cosmic coincidence, Mark. It's really quite something because as seen from Earth, the moon is the same size in the sky as the sun. The moon's much smaller, but it's closer. The sun is much bigger, but it's further, and it just works out. We've actually calculated that that's not true on any other planet. If you went to Mars or Jupiter, there wouldn't be just an exact coverage by the moon of the sun. We're the only place that happens. So
I had no idea. That's fascinating. I didn't realize that. It's really a cool fact.
Congratulate all the Mark Thompson listeners for their good taste in being born on this planet. But so what's happening April 8th? In a narrow path, starting in Mexico, in Mazatlan, and there how nice. There we see the path. Starting on the western coast of Mexico, you see the dark path going up toward the northeast, going through many populated areas of Texas, through Indiana, the Midwest, and then into the northeastern states, including upstate New York. As you guys heard, Niagara Falls is on that black path, and then into New England and northeastern Canada. If you're in that path, you see the moon exactly covering the sun. And there are about 32 million people who live in that path already. And we expect that number to at least double on Monday, which is causing incredible headaches for, and you heard an emergency has been declared around Niagara Falls. We've been working for 2 years with emergency management agencies, trying to warn them and prepare them. And it's coming next Monday. That's what's happening.
I have to say that it's so interesting because people look for, you call it totality, where you have complete shading of the sun by the moon, right? It's called. So you want ideally to be in that place which has that totality. But for most of us, and many of us in America who are not going to be traveling to these places or don't live in those places, we're not going to get that totality. So you still can experience it. I know the sun is so powerful that even if just, you can cover up 75% of it and you're still not going to see much reduction in the amount of light that you have, right?
You're absolutely right. So if you're in that zone that we just showed, then you will see the spectacular turning of day into night. When the sun is completely covered by the moon, it gets so dark, some of the brighter stars come out, animals are all confused. It's an eerie spectacle. But if you're not in that zone, which is most of us, then what you'll see is a bite taken out of the sun, a big black bite taken out of the sun. And in different places in the United States, the bite is different size. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we'll see about 45% of the sun covered, the sun's diameter covered by the moon. In New York, they'll see 91% of the sun covered. So just depends on where you are relative to that path. But if any part of the sun is showing, and this is the important thing to take away from today's show, if any part of the sun is showing, it's really important to protect your eyes. It's not safe to look at the sun. Even if 91% is covered, that other 9% could damage your eyes because the sun's light is so intense. So if you want to view the partial eclipse, well, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but you either need those special eclipse glasses, and we'll talk about how to get them, or you need to project an image of the sun, which is safe to look at.
That is really what I wanted to get to, since most of us are, as you've suggested, not in these places that are going to get the totality, so we're going to get a partial eclipse. But the partial eclipse is a really cool thing to see, and as you say, there are these kind of makeshift things you can do to see it.
Right. So the first thing I want to report is that thanks to the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation here in the Bay Area, we got a grant to distribute 6 million eclipse glasses.
Wow.
Through 13,000 public libraries nationwide.
Wow.
And so we're thrilled with this. And I checked in the Bay Area, some libraries still have the glasses left. For example,
come on. What? Yes, get out there, get those glasses at the library.
Now, don't be disappointed if they're gone. 6 million sounds like a lot, but there are 500 million people who live in North America. So 6 million is still only a small amount. But again, you don't need the glasses for each person. You can share the glasses because eclipses are slow. They take over an hour to get to maximum and another hour for the moon to get off the sun. So you can share glasses with other people. But if you have these glasses, then you can safely look at the sun. To tell that it's real authentic glasses, on the back of the glasses, look for the ISO statement. ISO is the organization of eye doctors and eye professionals, and they certify these glasses. So look for an ISO certification on the back of your glasses. But if you can't get glasses, as Mark points out, there are other ways of looking at the sun safely. And my favorite involves a household colander. Now you might say, what? What does a colander have to do with what? Thank you. So it turns out And each hole, you know what a colander is, right? It's what you
Sure,
wash the pasta and the salad in.
Sure.
It's full of holes. Now, if you stand with your back to the sun, there you go, thank you. You stand with your back to the sun and hold the colander over your shoulder. Then the sun's rays will go through the colander, and each hole will act like a little pinhole projector. And the shadow on the sidewalk will show you many eclipsed suns. And you can watch the eclipse grow in size as the time goes by, just using a colander. And if you're standing in the middle of the street, holding a colander over your shoulder, some neighbor's going to come out and check to see if you're okay. And then you can involve the neighbors in watching the eclipse. So
the science is ridiculous.
No, I think he's a distinguished scientist. I think it's actually sound science.
I've done this, so I could guarantee you that it'll be a fun way to see the eclipse sun.
Can you make pasta while watching the eclipse? Phineas wants to know. Well, that's a great...
Probably not recommended. Focus on what you're doing with the sun.
It's pretty amazing. Here's another. Well, let me just quickly remark on this. I'm always astounded by these sorts of things of the sort that you've just mentioned, Professor Fraknoi, because these are discoveries that were made thousands of years ago. People realized this was a way to view this natural phenomenon. And they made this discovery, without all of the bells and whistles of technology that we have today.
That's so true. So one of the things that we realize, and anyone who's in the zone of totality will realize next Monday, is that when the moon blocks the sun, the light doesn't go completely out. The sun has an atmosphere, a thin layer of glowing gas around it, which is much fainter than the sun. It's usually completely flooded by the brilliance of the sun. But when the moon exactly covers the sun, the atmosphere of the sun comes out. We call it a corona because it's like a glowing crown around the sun. And that's how we discovered that the sun has that kind of atmosphere. We now know that that atmosphere is actually hotter than the sun, which makes no sense whatsoever. As you get away from the sun, things should get cooler. But it turns out there's an enormous amount of magnetism roiling the atmosphere of the sun, making it much hotter, causing great loops of material to come out, which you can also see during a total eclipse. So we learned a tremendous amount about our own star, the sun, just by watching these incredibly convenient, coincidental eclipses.
It's just remarkable. It really is. Someone had a question. Let me just see if I can get it. It was about the, can you fly a plane, David is asking, and stay in eclipse from Mexico to Canada?
That's a great question. So people are trying to do that, to rent a fast plane and to go from where the eclipse spot first hits the Earth to where it's going, because as the Earth turns, as you saw on that map that we showed, the eclipse spot moves from one place to another. So it starts in Mexico and goes all the way up to Canada. Can you follow along? So I tried to figure out the speed with which it's moving, and the speed with which it's moving near Mexico, when it's in Mexico, is 1,600 miles per hour. By the time it gets to Indiana, the spot is moving at about 2,000 miles per hour. And when it gets to the very edge of the eastern side of Canada, it's going to be moving because of the angle at more than 4,000 miles per hour. So this is going to be hard to keep up with. You can certainly keep up with it a little bit, but I don't know if even Elon Musk has the planes to fly.
Yeah, that sounds like it's not the best plan, right? Well, it's really exciting. Look at this. This is so true, Andrew Fraknoi. The Fraknoi experience. What could be better? Thank you for so many years of enlightenment, says Cameo. How about that? Yeah.
So thank you so much. So let's give the times for the listeners who are in Northern California. What will be the times on Monday where it'll be best to look at the sun? So locally, the eclipse will begin in Northern California at about 10:15 in the morning. The maximum bite out of the sun will be taken at about 11:13 a.m. And the eclipse will be over by 12:16 p.m. So it's about 2 hours from 10:15 to 12:15. Now, that's a very slow process when the moon slowly moves across the sun. So if you only have a little bit of time, it's Monday, it's a work and school day. My recommendation is go out at 11, take your colander or your eclipse glasses with you, go out at 11 and stay out till about 11:30. That's a good half hour to see the maximum eclipse. You get to see the nice bite taken out of it, share it with other people at your work or your home, and then you can go back about your business.
And that seems like a very good plan, except for the fact, Albert, I didn't realize this, Albert, that this eclipse is going to coincide with our show on Monday. And are you aware of this, Albert?
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
How could you put our show up against a total eclipse of the sun, Albert? I mean...
Yeah, it was calculated, Mark. That's a Tony Day, so I will actually be out there.
Oh, Albert does not
glasses.
produce on Mondays and Tuesdays, and so he's saying Tony will be here. So, all right. Well, I mean, Albert, still, I'm going to...
Albert, thank you.
We may... Kim and I will figure out a way that we can go out and enjoy the eclipse, even though it's going to be conflicting with it. I didn't realize until just this moment when Professor Fraknoi reviewed the times. That's why I myself have learned something here today. There was a question, and before I let you go, about, I mentioned ancient peoples, and this is really a good question from Edward Lee. Thank you for the super chat.
Big shout out.
What is your favorite ancient structure that glorifies an eclipse?
Well, without question, Stonehenge. We now know that Stonehenge in England was actually an eclipse calculator. They were able to keep track of the sort of regularity of eclipses. There's an eclipse season somewhere on Earth every 6 months. Now, that doesn't mean you always get a total eclipse. Sometimes you only get a partial eclipse. But every 6 months, it's possible to have an eclipse because the moon in its orbit is roughly in the same location as the sun, and an eclipse can happen. Most of the Earth is water. So most of the time when an eclipse happens, it happens over water, and you don't get publicity on the Mark Thompson show for it. But every once in a while, it has the good taste to come down in a populated area. And so that's why you don't hear about eclipses every 6 months. But that's what the Stonehenge stones, the many rows of stones, enabled the people of its time to do. And there are also wonderful eclipse paintings in Aztec and Maya monuments. So many ancient cultures were aware of eclipses and celebrated eclipses the way we do.
Wow. Really great stuff, man. Well, there'll be no shortage of pictures and great photography around the eclipse.
Well, we should mention that perhaps is that, again, it's not safe to look at the eclipsed sun if it's just partially eclipsed like it will be here with your iPhone. The iPhone is not something that has protective material on it. So there is a new device called Solar Snap that you can attach to your iPhone, and it filters out the intense light of the sun. But if you don't have that, be careful. Either hold up the glasses to the iPhone or don't take iPhone pictures directly. You can hurt your eyes.
I mean, and we always want to photograph these moments, but the reality is there are going to be plenty of photographs of the moment. I mean, you don't need to, you don't need to take a picture, just to put it bluntly. Yeah. There's Solar Snap. Thank you, Albert, for that.
And those are the glasses that
and there's still time to get it. I mean, they might be sold out, but you can try them on Amazon and elsewhere.
Right. The company that makes the reliable ones in the U.S. is called American Paper Optics, and they say they can still Federal Express some to you. I'm sure places like the Exploratorium and the Chabot Science Center will have glasses to give away or sell. And as I say, libraries might still have some. I went to my library in San Francisco, and they still had some. So check them out first.
That's terrific. Thank you, Professor Fraknoi. Someone's saying, it's Julie. Thank you, Professor. Just wonderful. Yeah, you have a lot of fans here, Professor Fraknoi, as you know. I have Solar Snap, somebody says. It worked great on the phone for the eclipse in October. So it's been road tested by our audience, and it does work. So cool about Stonehenge, says Ren. That's an amazing place to visit. And yeah, a lot of great information today, Professor Fraknoi. Wow.
Well, thank you. I'll just let me just mention, sort of as a final thought about all this,
yes,
is
sir.
that eclipses are temporary. The moon is actually moving away from the Earth very, very slowly. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. But in millions of years, the moon will be so far away, it won't be able to eclipse the sun anymore. So this is another reason to get in touch with eclipses this time around when we're here, because one day they won't be possible. It's just a remarkable cosmic coincidence.
It really is a spectacular thing to see, too. It's just really a special. I went to Mexico in early 90s. I forget when it was at Cabo San Lucas. And I think I may have mentioned this before, that I was there with the whole crew from, I mean, I wasn't there invited with them, but they happened to be there on the same mission, or whatever you want to call it, excursion. The Star Trek The Next Generation people. So you had Patrick Stewart and LeVar Burton, et cetera. And it was terrific. I mean, that just gave it a little celebrity shimmer, but the moment itself was spectacular. It was unbelievable. It was the kind of thing that's why I've been chasing the second experience. I almost went to Texas, but now it looks as though we're not going to be able to get that together. But after this, it provokes this question. When is the next one, please, Professor Fraknoi? Is there another shot at it?
There will be another one. The next one to cross the United States will be in 2045. But I also asked, when is the next total eclipse in San Francisco? And the computer calculations are December 31st, 2252. So in 228 years, we will have one in San Francisco. Something to leave as a note for your descendants. But let me mention one other thing quickly before we go. If you want to see the total eclipse that Mark was just talking about, it will be live cast. The Exploratorium Science Museum, exploratorium.org in San Francisco, always live cast the eclipse. Look for it on their website, or just go to YouTube and look up the NASA official webcast of the eclipse. They will have a whole channel with special guests live casting the eclipse from wherever it's clear. Because the one thing we didn't talk about is that it could be cloudy in many places, including Niagara Falls. It could be really cloudy in April. So there are expeditions ready with TV cameras to live cast the eclipse from wherever it's clear. And you can tune in on that on April 8th.
I love it. Again, the Emeritus Chair of Astronomy Department at Foothill and San Francisco State University, and the OpenStax work you've done to make the astronomy textbook available to so many. Professor Fraknoi, it's great. The lead author of that OpenStax astronomy textbook. And you can find that at, well, we'll put a link to it. I'll tell you what, we'll put a link to it in our, I guess your website might have it, fraknoi.com probably has it. Yeah.
For some reason, that URL was not in demand. So
What?
I got Fraknoi.com, and that's an easy one to go to and find all the nice things Mark has been talking about.
Good stuff. Thanks so much for being. Kim, did you have something? Sometimes you pop back on if you have something.
I did. I had a really quick question, hoping to ask you about a story that I saw that said we might be able to see at the same time the eclipse and the Devil Comet all at once.
Ah, yes, the Devil Comet. There is a very faint comet that's going to be roughly in that part of the sky, but every indication is it's not going to be visible to the naked eye.
Okay.
And you will need binoculars to see it, and you will need to know where to point. So I don't want to play that up, because people will be so disappointed. If you're in the total eclipse path and it gets dark, Venus and Jupiter might be visible. They're planets on either side of the sun. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time looking for the Devil Comet. Just look at the eclipse sun and the beautiful atmosphere around it, the fast changing and almost glittering display. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again, Professor Fraknoi. Till next time, all the best, my friend. Bye-bye.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
I'm excited, everyone. I'm excited about the eclipse. I'm excited about our guest today, David Cay Johnston, Professor Andrew Fraknoi, with the the great Jefferson Graham, and I'm most excited, as you might imagine, with the
Now,
Final Four.
Mark's Madness.
I am sick excited about it, damn it. Sick with excitement. This is it. The OGs go up. It's the Cinderella story of the tournament, which is...
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
That's the Cinderella against the OG.
Why are you yelling?
Why are you yelling against 30% idiots? Wow, vote now! 30 to 35% idiots is winning.
Wow.
Over why are you yelling? And this is a fairly dominant showing. Right, Kamish?
Yeah, it's actually not surprising. It's the only thing that's surprising about this 35%. I disrespectedly gave it a 26 seed, and it's here in the Final Four, and it's looking like it's going to make it to the finals. So
it really is true. It looks as though that 30 to 35% idiots, with 61% of the vote right now, is exceeding all expectations. Why are you yelling? Had 30 and change. But
there's never been anything like this.
You can 38%. You can vote until midnight tonight in the community section of our YouTube channel. But typically, when you have this kind of one-sidedness, there is no after-hour voting that's going to bring it back. But you know, this is definitely a year where stranger things have happened. So right now, if nothing changes, it will likely be idiots versus chit. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like, and it'll be really exciting. And then for the finals, it'll be all-day voting for 2 hours for the live show, and then just the one drop. Well,
and again, let me just make sure I have this, Albert. It would be tomorrow that would be the finals. Am I right about that?
That is correct. We'll find out tomorrow who makes it to the finals.
Oh, this is really something. All right. Well, good luck, everybody. It looks as though, a lot of brackets have fallen, but a lot of brackets are still alive. Karen says, I like yelling so much, but idiots is so prescient. I think it is true. A prescient, of course, would be a ding word. Wow, that was a loud ding. I would say this, that there's an interesting thing that's happened this year, and the commissioner, you may not be aware of this, but he issues an internal report at the end of March Madness, and we, again, don't read it, we don't release it publicly, but I can tell you that I think it's going to touch on the fact that the 30 to 35% idiots, it's the substance of the drop that people are responding to. It's not even the drop itself. It's that somehow the nature of the electorate is being called out by Avila, and I think in that drop, they've read that into it, and somehow that lands with people. You know what I mean, Kim and Kamish? Yeah. So I think that's really what's happening here. But
and I
again,
think people also really miss Jim Avila. I mean, it's nice to hear his voice. So, yeah.
No, it could be. I mean, that's really more you than anybody else, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
I miss Avila, but I think you have a kind of crush on Avila.
The guy. It's true. I'm not going to deny it.
Kim is the president of the Jim Avila fan club, says Louise.
True.
That's true. Which will. So which way will she go? Louise is asking. If it's a chit versus idiots final, and it's likely going to be that the intrigue. LOL, love the madness. Yeah, Louise asks a very
big
good question. Out. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah. What is going to happen in the McAllister household if you're up against your boyfriend, Jim Avila?
I have to vote for Jim.
Wow. That's extraordinary.
When I love Mark, I love with my whole heart.
Get nothing.
I guess.
You just don't get it.
I don't get it. I really don't. Once again, I really don't get it. That's terrific. As we finish here, I wanted to see if there's anything else. Somebody was trolling me. You know, I love the trolls. Calvin, who is the shadow producer of this show, thank you for the $20 super chat.
Big shout out.
Mark pledged his eternal love to supreme, sweet, sexy, seductress Courtney. It is true. I did pledge.
Wow.
So we're talking about supreme leaders before, because the supreme leader is, I think, maybe the best title in the world. When you're the supreme leader of something.
Especially like a larger country. You know, if you're a big country, supreme leader, that sounds really cool.
And we were talking about that in relation to Iran, because Iran's supreme leader has just issued an edict in response to Israeli bombing. And so I was saying that supreme leader is a pretty good A, it's a pretty good gig, but B, more to the point, it's a great title to have.
I mean, you're not just a leader; you're a supreme leader.
Thank you.
It puts president, emperor, king to shame, really.
Right. If you add the word supreme to any title, it's pretty much a great ad. Like if you're just let's say you're just you work at a coffee shop, you're a barista. But if I say you're the supreme barista, I mean, right away, come on. And go, oh, he's the top guy or she's the top, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
Even when I go to Taco Bell, Mark, Crunchwrap Supreme is how I.
Thank you. It
Taco
works.
Supreme.
It works. Thank you. It works
It's better than all the others, right? Yeah.
Yes. Use it in your world. I think you'll be happy. Ronald, who's clearly new to the show and probably not watching anymore, wrote, man, this guy has got serious forehead. He's talking about me.
What?
We've talked about it before. I could probably put a sponsorship here for a segment, which I consider. Yeah. And somebody said, this guy, they thought he was talking about Andrew Fraknoi, but he says, no, I mean the host. I don't disagree. I do have serious forehead. And as I say, I'd like to use it to some kind of end that would help the show, but I don't think I really, Wes is asking, I still want to know the context of the Oprah what?
What?
Well, you remember the context of the Oprah what. Kim, you remember that? It was during the interview with
one
Harry
of the royals,
and Meghan.
right?
Yeah, the royals.
Yeah, Meghan.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Someone else asked who was speaking in the Why Are You Yelling? Who is that?
That was a caller.
Why are you yelling?
That was a caller, excuse me.
That was a rare call too. We didn't take a lot of calls, and we
did
take
not take a lot of calls. But he was a real Trumper. And I wasn't yelling like so many different conversations. But again, so you'll have to explain to me how ba 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 and ba da da da. I mean, can you explain any of those things? And he just said,
"Why are you yelling?"
Okay, and so I wasn't yelling,
right?
But that was the origin of that particular drop.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. But it was great. It was a caller on our show, and as Albert says, we didn't take a lot of calls. We always put somebody through if they disagreed with me. We always did. We love, as you know, that stuff. So anyway, Fivers for Fraknoi is a super sticker from Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Really
That's an
good
alt
stuff.
rock band, Mark.
Fivers for Fraknoi.
Yeah, Fivers for Fraknoi is a really cool rock band. I love that. Well, that's
The Mark Thompson Show.
Say it ain't so, Albert. We have to finish. This one was meant for the after party live, Wes says. But they are temporarily I didn't know you were demonetized. I didn't know that.
Yeah, everything's changing over, and so when you do that, you have to wait another 32 days. So
oh my God!
That's
I thought when he went off
do.
the rails, and he wasn't happy about it.
Yeah, I figure it all falls under the Mark Thompson family of shows. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put the $5 aside for Kim.
I'll hold on to it, Mark.
Yeah,
just hand it to me. I'll hold on to it for them.
Actually, if you could just take it down to your local 7-Eleven, slap it down on the Powerball, and let it ride, that would be fantastic.
My God.
We're playing the Super Lotto or the Powerball courtesy of Wes.
Win the big money. Win the big money. Thanks to the great fans of the show and followers. And until tomorrow, when we have Rothman.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We have Rothman, and who else do we have tomorrow, Kim? Somebody?
Out of time. Bye.
Maybe Belinda?
We do.
Somebody.
We have an author coming in,
All
too.
right. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.